Planning to buy or sell a used car in Wisconsin? Well, before you hand over a thick stack of cash or toss someone the keys to your ride, you really need to listen closely, because one tiny, seemingly innocent mistake on your paperwork, it can literally cost you thousands of dollars. Seriously. So let's dive right into this explainer and completely demystify the Wisconsin DMV title transfer process step by step so you can handle your private party transaction flawlessly.
You might be thinking, hey, it's just a simple piece of paper, right? Well, think again. What actually happens if you make just one wrong scratch on a Wisconsin car title? It is a nightmare. A single drop of whiteout, a scribbled out name, or maybe a hidden salvage brand can instantly void the whole transaction. Worse, it could completely tank the car's resale value, drag you into a literal mountain of DMV bureaucracy, or, get this, hit you with a massive $5,000 fine.
To save you from those terrifying headaches, here's our roadmap. We're covering the stakes of title transfers, the essential documents and paperwork, how to execute the title assignment, calculating your taxes and fees, submitting everything to the DMV, and finally, some pro tips and pitfalls to watch out for.
Section 1. The stakes of title transfers.
Okay, let's start with the absolute most critical concept you need to grasp before a single dollar changes hands. Wisconsin law treats the physical certificate of title as a highly sensitive legal document. You literally have to treat this piece of paper like a sacred artifact. If you make a mistake, you can't just cross it out. No way. Any unapproved alterations, erasures, or the dreaded whiteout correction tape will instantly render the title completely invalid. Seriously, if even a drop of correction fluid touches that document, the seller has to immediately apply for a replacement title using Form MV2119. Until that new title arrives, that car legally cannot be sold.
Section 2. Essential documents and paperwork.
What's really interesting here is how simple the mandatory paperwork actually is if you prepare in advance. The buyer absolutely needs the original certificate of title. No photocopies allowed. And of course, it must be signed by the seller. Now, if there was a loan on the vehicle, you'll also need a physical or electronic lien release from the seller's bank. You'll both need valid IDs naturally, and, while the state doesn't strictly mandate it, we highly recommend you draft a comprehensive bill of sale, like Wisconsin's Form MV2928, just to perfectly document the exact terms of your agreement. It's a lifesaver. If you're mailing your paperwork or visiting a third-party agent, the official Form MV1 title and license plate application is going to be your absolute best friend. Why? Well, Wisconsin law requires you to display license plates within 2 business days of purchase. If you don't already have plates to transfer over, you're going to use this specific form to apply for temporary transit plates. That way, you can actually drive your new car home legally.
Section 3. Executing the title assignment.
So here is where we put pen to paper. You really need to pay close attention to the odometer disclosure on the back of the title. For vehicles under 20 years old, the seller, and I mean only the seller, must write the exact mileage, excluding tenths of a mile. Listen, if the buyer tries to be helpful and writes the mileage in themselves, boom, the DMV will permanently brand that vehicle as having not actual mileage. Once that brand is on the title, it's game over. It cannot be reversed, and it will permanently tank the car's market value.
Also, sellers are legally obligated to disclose any known historic brands that reflect the structural or operational history of the car. We're talking about salvage status, flood damage, prior use as a police cruiser or a taxi, or even if it was a lemon law manufacturer buyback. Look, failing to disclose these permanent notations isn't just bad etiquette. As we mentioned earlier, it carries a massive statutory fine of up to $5,000 under Wisconsin law. Definitely not worth the risk.
Moving right along, Section 4. Calculating taxes and fees.
Let's do a little math and see how Wisconsin builds the financial obligations for your new ride. The state calculates your total vehicle tax by starting with a 5% base state rate and then adding local, county, and city taxes. But here's the kicker. It's based strictly on where the vehicle is customarily kept. So for example, if you keep the car in the city of Milwaukee, your total tax hits 7.9%. In most counties, like Dane or Brown, it's about 5.5%. And if you're thinking, maybe I can just lie about where I parked the car to save a few bucks, scratch that idea immediately. Submitting a false location to evade local wheel taxes can actually land you a $200 fine and up to 6 months in jail. Beyond the taxes, you've got administrative fees. While a standard annual automobile registration is currently $85, you also have to pay a one-time title transfer fee. Right now, that standard base fee sits at $164.50, but you might want to mark your calendars. To support the state transportation budget, this fee is scheduled to jump to $214.50 on October 1, 2025.
All right, Section 5, submitting to the DMV.
With all those documents signed and the math calculated, how do we actually get this across the finish line? Well, the fastest, most efficient route for a standard transfer is definitely the EMV public portal. You just jump online, initiate the verification, punch in the transfer details and mileage, pay with a card or ACH, and bam! You can instantly print your e-receipt and temporary plates. But listen closely to this part. Completing it online does not mean you're done. To prevent the whole transaction from being completely invalidated, you absolutely, positively must physically mail that original signed title and your printed e-receipt straight to the DMV in Madison.
Now, you can't use the online portal for everything. Some complex transfers require you to go in person to a DMV customer service center or an authorized third-party agent. We're talking about situations where the buyer's under 18, if you're adding an active new loan, if the title has a salvage brand, or even if there's just minor physical damage to the title that requires a statement of intent form. Just keep in mind, if you do go to a DMV center in person, they're going to tack on a $5 counter service fee.
Oh, and depending on where you live, you might just have one final hurdle. If your car is customarily kept in one of the 7 southeastern Wisconsin counties, places like Kenosha, Milwaukee, or Waukesha, and it's more than 5 model years old, you've got to get an emissions test done when the ownership changes. You have exactly 45 days from your registration date to pass this test. If you don't, the DMV is going to automatically suspend your shiny new registration.
Finally, Section 6, Pro Tips and Pitfalls. Let's wrap this up with some rapid-fire, actionable advice to protect everyone from post-sale nightmares. First, if you're the seller, Wisconsin law says the license plates belong to you, not the vehicle. You've got to take your plates off the car before you hand over those keys. Also, you want to immediately file an electronic seller notification online within 30 days of the sale. This creates a really clear administrative boundary, which protects you from liability if the new buyer decides to go out and rack up parking tickets or traffic citations in a car that technically still has your name in the system.
Now, if you're the buyer, your biggest pro tip is this. Run a Wiz.lien holder search using the 17-digit VIN before you hand over a single dime. You see, Wisconsin is a title-holding state, meaning they mail titles directly to lenders. So if the seller just hands you a confirmation of ownership paper, they don't actually possess the physical title to give you, which means they might not even have the right to sell it to you yet. Always audit the physical title in their hand to guarantee there are absolutely no scratch-outs or correction fluid. Are you ready to take the wheel and execute a flawless title transfer? Understanding these super strict rules ensures you protect your hard-earned investment, dodge those massive fines, and keep Wisconsin roads legally clear.
Just as a final note, remember that state rules, local wheel taxes, and processing fees are always subject to change over time. This explainer is purely for educational purposes, so you should always verify the latest Wisconsin DOT regulations or even consult a professional before signing your name to any legal document. But armed with this foolproof roadmap, what kind of car are you hoping to buy next?